So this is how it all started with me in the mountain. It was around the campfire. I got invited by my cousins to go hunting. Chukar and quail and rabbit hunting out here in the desert when I was 13 years old, 1963. Anyways, these two old guys showed up in their Jeep and they started talking to my Uncle Tommy. One thing led to another, and so my Uncle Tommy invited them in for a good old supper of quail, chukar, rabbits. And so they accepted, and we all sat down. We had a nice big feast. And then afterwards, we all sat around the campfire. My Uncle Tommy first started off talking a lot about family and hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And then these two old guys, I say they're old, they were old when I was a kid. They were probably in their 30s or 40s, you know. Anyways, they started in talking about themselves and how they were partners in a placer gold mining operation just out of Ridgecrest area. Then they got to talking and they started telling about their adventures and how they started finding some very unusual objects in their search for finding gold. And these objects were very, very unusual, and they were finding them. You have to understand, this is a placer gold mine. It's not a hard rock gold mine, it's a placer gold mine. And when they got down to a certain level, they ran into a lot of this caliche, of which is desert cement. Anyways, and so they were exploring below the caliche to see how deep it was and if there was any more gold below the caliche. And anyways, they started finding these unusual objects, which were round, circular discs that were apparently very old, very ancient. And they found other stuff too. I can't remember, but it was the discs mostly. So they were trying to find an explanation for this stuff. They were going around talking to different folks and friends and other fellow miners and that type of thing, and trying to come up with some sort of explanation on them. And then they kind of got invited by a friend of theirs that was a miner up here off of Walker Pass that needed some help in his mine or around the mine workings. And they went on up there for a day or so and helped him out. Well, this miner also had been finding these strange things in his caliche along close to the mine. He had a dozer. He had to build roads into where his mine was and everything else, and when he was dozing, he found these things. They were pretty close to the same objects that these guys had been finding. So they started looking for further explanations and everything else. Finally, they came in contact with a old guy out of Barstow that had quite a history behind him and had a big museum of sorts in his home in Barstow. And this guy was pretty much he'd been an old sheriff or a deputy or a lawman of some sort at one point of time, but he was kind of a renegade archaeologist. He collected lots of stuff. He'd been a cowboy, a rancher, just a jack of all trades type of guy. And he knew a lot about this type of thing. And so they took their articles to him, and he identified them, and he knew where they had came, the vicinity of where they had came from. And that started them on a big quest. Anyways, it's more elaborate in my book. Anyways, and so they told this fantastic story, and then they talked about how they had run into this desert rat in, I think it was Johannesburg, and how this desert rat also had known something along the lines of this story, and had been at this certain mountain and had found certain objects and things, and then shortly afterwards he kind of shut up and didn't talk anymore about it. And they were trying to pump him with information. He wasn't going to talk unless he could cut a deal with them. And so Charlie was the oldest prospector, and then it was Clint. Clint was the youngest. Both of them decided, well, you know, we'll strike a deal with this old man and see what he needs, you know. And he wanted some wine, and he wanted some groceries and tobacco and that type of thing for his information. And so they supplied him with all of this. And the old guy came through. He drew him a map of this country and where to go, and that was pretty much it. And so from there, Charlie and Clint came back. They came back to their mining operation. It didn't happen right away, but a week or a couple weeks later, they got their supplies together and everything else, and they got in their Jeep, and they found all of the roads that the old desert rat had outlaid in his map, which was the northern end of Black Mountain here. Anyways, and so they found everything, and they drove on up to a certain point, and then they had to leave their Jeep and hike up the northern end of Black Mountain. And in doing so, they started to find out a lot of very unusual structures, and also this set of giant twin stone chairs with a table in between them. They were taking pictures, and old Charlie even had a movie camera with him, and so they were taking movies and pictures and everything else. They were exploring, and they got on up to a point of where a heavy fog had rolled in from someplace. They don't know where. And they had climbed up to a point above the fog, and they could look out over the fog, and they could see off to the east what looked like an ocean, a giant ocean. Or it looked like an ocean. And so they were like hallucinating, I guess. But they said it was an ocean, like water. And then as they were making their way down through this fog, then they saw fainted glimpses of beings, or shadows of beings, and ghosts or spirits. And anyways, it freaked them out. And lots of different circumstances happened, and finally they both gave up in despair, and they left, and they returned to their Jeep, and that's the last time they climbed Black Mountain. And that's the basic story. There's more to it. Anyways, it was a fantastic story. Sitting around a campfire, you're only a kid, you're only a little kid listening to these two guys talk about all this stuff. But, it was one of those things where I thought, this ain't true. There's no way this is true, Anyways, I didn't take any stock in it, really. But for some reason, the story stuck with me. Well, so jump forward. I just got out of service, and I went to work for my oldest brother at a Goodyear tire store, changing tires in Redondo Beach. And so I worked there for, 4, 5, 6 months, I guess. And then he came to me and he said, hey, I got a buddy down the street down at Butler Buick. And he needs a tire changer, and he'll pay you more money than what I can pay you. That sounds good. So I went down there and met him, and he hired me right off the bat. So I went to work down there. Well, 2 or 3 bays down from the tire shop was Bones, who was this little guy, older guy, about 60 years old, and he was a tune-up man there, and he was a real character type of guy. He was a little guy, but this guy had taught judo and jujitsu to the police departments and everything else, okay? And had a gruffy voice, and you could see he was a tough guy. Anyways, well, he was a miner out here in the southern El Pasos. He had a mine out here, and he had a mining partner, Gene, and Gene worked over in the heavy line front end department. And anyway, so over the course of days, weeks, whenever it was, I would spend my lunches with them up in the lunchroom and listen to them talk about the mine and everything else and how's it going. And, I was interested in that, Well, one thing led to another, and pretty soon they started talking about these stone chairs. That's the same story that I'd heard from Charlie and Clint. But these guys said they were real. And so one thing led to another, and anyways, I asked them if I could come out to the mine and see the operation, and if they could take me to these stone chairs. They said, well, we'll think about it. Anyways, come to find out, it was a secret, okay? And they had kind of, slipped up and forgotten I was there. Anyways, and so one thing led to another, and pretty soon they said, okay, you can come out, and and said, but this is a secret. Okay, and these guys were dead earnest. It's a secret. Anyway, so I had to ensure them that I would keep the secret. So I went on out there early Saturday morning. I thought it was early. And I got out there about 9 o'clock. They had already been there for 3 hours. Anyways, they'd given me the layout, plus they had a caretaker, old Jim, that they had found old Jim in the desert years before, and they'd set him up and with a trailer, and they needed a caretaker for their mining operation. They were mining tungsten, but they had byproducts of gold and silver and that type of thing in their mine. Anyways, so they told me, they gave me directions on how to get there and everything else, and so I went on out there, and I got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, which I thought was pretty early. Well, they'd already been there for 2 or 3 hours, and they were down in the mine mining. And anyways, and so when I showed up at Jim's trailer, and they had pretty much told me all about Jim and what to do. I had waited in my car for a little while before getting out because Jim had this great big dog, and which turned out to be super friendly. And then old Jim came on out, and he was a real desert rat type of guy. And anyways, and over a period of a couple of years, we became really good friends. Anyways, and then that whole day of Saturday, I got the entire tour of the mine and the mine operation and everything else. And then Sunday, Bones and Jean took me on up Black Mountain on the backside, close to where Sheep Springs is. And we drove on up in the Jeep. There was a road there that existed, okay, probably still exists, okay. And we drove on up to a certain point we could not get any farther up to, okay. And then we had to hike from there on up and over and to the far northern end of the northern peak, okay, or more northern than the northern peak. And they took me on over, and they had been taking care of these chairs with this stone table, and it was in a large oval depression, and it was hidden by bushes, okay. The bush has been growing in there, and plus other bushes that they had added to it and everything else. And but anyways, they uncovered it all. So they showed me the reality of this. So, and these are very large chairs made for people larger than us, and with a table in between. And there are petroglyphs all over the table, and petroglyphs on the side, on the back side of the chairs, but not on the back seat or the seat themselves. They had uncovered all of this, and they were sitting on the edge of this circular depression. I'd gone down there and I started checking it all out. I did a big no-no. I sat in one of the stone chairs. And immediately it put me into a trance. And also Bones and Jean said I disappeared. And I could not see them either, and I was in a fog. And even though it lasted only maybe a few seconds or so, it seemed longer than that. Anyways, there was a big guy standing in front of me, and he was like 8 or 9 feet tall, and he was trying to tell me something. He was holding something like this, and I couldn't quite see it, but it looked like a sphere or something, or, you know. But he was talking to me in some language that I could not even comprehend. And he had this colorful robe on, and he had boots on, not sandals, but boots. I could see all of this, and he was telling me something, and I couldn't get it. And then I stood up, and then it was all over with. And then I was back in reality, and Bones and Jean were running around looking for me because they couldn't find me. And they said, "Where the hell have you been?" And I said, "Shit, I've been here the whole time." You know. Anyways, and so I explained to them what had happened, and they didn't talk much. They just listened to me. And anyways, and then we all sat. I joined them up on the ledge, and we all smoked 2 or 3 cigarettes, thinking about it. Then Gene says, "Well, it's time to cover it up." So they spent about 30 minutes or 40 minutes covering up the chairs with all these bushes and everything else. And after it got all done, then we climbed back over the ridge of the mountain to the road where the Jeep was, climbed in the Jeep, drove on down to the mine, and didn't talk that much about it. And I got on down there, and I was in a whole different frame of mind, and so were they, actually. And finally I said, "You know what? I gotta go home. I've had it." Anyways, so I went home, and I thought about that the whole week. And then Friday came, and I went over to Gene, or to Bones, and I said, "Hey, are you going to the mine this weekend?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you mind if I show up?" And he goes, "No, I don't mind." He said, "Go ask Gene." Well, ask Gene. He says, "No, I don't mind." Great. So I went back over and told Bones he doesn't mind. He said, "Well, if you come earlier, you'll get breakfast." So I came earlier that time. So I showed up about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got breakfast. Anyways, so I started spending my time around the mine and inside the mine, and helping out a little bit here and there. And I did that for a while, but I had it inside of me about the mountain. And I knew for a fact, because I was driving an old car, that there was no way I was going to be able to attack the mountain from the eastern side. And that's when I started. I had a bunch of camping equipment, but I bought more. I bought shovels and more picks and miscellaneous stuff to start attacking it from the west side here.
Why did you need the shovels and picks?
Because I had a one-wheel drive car.
Oh, okay.
And it's all sandy out here.
Oh, okay.
And so if I got stuck, I could dig my way out, which I did happen several times. Anyways, so but I started attacking the mountain, and the first thing was there's 3 canyons that empty out to the west here off the mountain, So I saw this thing, I didn't know what it was, but I could see it from far, far away, and it was a horseshoe. It was a horseshoe like this, or a U, a big U, and had a bar in it, like that. And I could see that from a long, long ways away. And it had dawned on me that somebody had made this. Anyways, and so I drove all the way back. I could see it from the Inyo Red Rock Road here, and I drove all the way back to a point where I could not see it. Okay, but I could see it. Even with binoculars, I could see it. So, drove down that road, and that was my first camp. Was at the base of the mountain down that road. And that's the first canyon I started exploring. Anyways, come to find out, this horseshoe is made out of ancient mesquite trees. Okay, all of it. Okay. Anyways, it's a mountain range marker by the Spanish. I did not know that at the time. But as I started exploring that canyon, I got halfway up this canyon, and it turned into like a mesa, a flat up in there. And there's all kinds of petroglyphs up in there. And of course, I'm a dummy. I can't read any of this stuff. But then I found this one petroglyph in there that I could read because it was Spanish. It was a Spanish date. And it was 1716. Okay, with Spanish crosses on it. Anyways, so I knew from that. Okay, I took pictures, and it's all in the book. That's right, everything's in the book. Okay.
It's been a while since you said that.
Yeah. Anyways, so anyways, I pretty much knew that the Spanish, at least the Spanish, were here. Okay, I didn't know why they were here. Okay, there was nothing that stood out why they would be here, you know. But, you know, I got stone chairs, and now the Spanish are here, you know. Well, what kind of sense does this make? You know, it makes no sense. And then I got Charlie and Clint's story, you know. I'm trying to figure all this stuff out, and of course, nothing makes sense, you know, but I have to keep on exploring. So I explore, and I explore, and well, there was this one little side canyon off of the main canyon that I'd been in, and I had not explored that little side canyon. So I decided the next day, I was out here for 4 or 5 days at that time. The next day I decided to explore that canyon, so I went on back down to my camp and replenished my pack and supplies and water and everything else. And I left early in the morning. I hiked on up and started exploring that side canyon. And it was getting into the 1:30 in the afternoon. And anyways, my water was getting low. I was drinking too much water as I was going. Anyways, and there was bees. There was bees everywhere. Bees like crazy. And I was trying to figure this all out, you know, why all these bees were in this canyon. Anyways, I kept on going, and then finally there was a pool of water there, you know, with a trickle coming out of the side of this rock face. and the bees were just everywhere. And so I needed water, and so I decided, well, I'm going to get some water. And so I pulled my canteen off and filled my water, and as I'm filling my water, there's bees. They're everywhere around me, but they're not attacking me. They never attack me. And I filled my canteen, and then I was off on my merry way further up the canyon. Well, I got on up to a point to where there was this big rock ledge jutting out, and about 3 foot, I could see that there was some kind of cave there, and it looked very, very interesting. And I decided, well, I was going to explore that. So I took my pack off and everything, and I crawled in this cave like a moron, and I crawled in on my belly. At first, it was a good size opening, then it got skinnier and skinnier. Anyways, I had gone too far, and then I realized I was stuck, and I was having problems getting out. It was like one of those, and I say this over and over, exactly what it was like. It was one of those Mexican finger gadgets, you know, you put your fingers in, you can't get them out because you pull, you know.
Chinese finger trap.
Yeah. Anyways, and so and that kept going through my mind. And the other thing kept going through my mind was how stupid could you possibly be? You know, of course, my answer is, you know, it comes natural, you know. Anyways, and so finally, I thought, oh my God, this is no good. This is no good, you know. I backed my way out a little bit, you know, but I thought if I could get on my back, at least I could push up against this rock and kind of push my way out or something, you know. Anyway, so I finagled and everything else, and you have to understand, I'm a lot skinnier then than I am now, you know. I'm still a young guy. Anyways, I finally get on my back, and I start pushing my way out, and I feel something on the ceiling. As I'm pushing my way out, I could feel grooves or something. It was weird. Anyways, I had a little pen light on me, and I somehow managed to get that thing out. And I was looking at this cave ceiling, and it looked like it was a map. It was a map. I'm running this through my mind on how logical this is. How could anybody get in there and draw a map? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Anyways, but it looks just like a map. Okay, and you can see incised grooves and everything else. Okay, it's not like fungus or anything else. Okay. Anyways, and so I'm running this through my mind and everything else, and finally I get out of the predicament I'm in, and I'm saying to myself, I found something. so I grab a pencil and paper and a flashlight. A bigger flashlight. I had this pen flashlight. I got bigger flashlight. And then I crawled back in again on my back. And then through a lot of great problems, okay, and I had to do this over and over. I'd have to go in and draw or remember what I was looking at and draw it out and then come back out, okay, and then I'd go back in and back and forth, Till finally, I think I had the whole map. Okay. And it showed this mountain with 3 crosses on it, with sun rays coming down. Okay, and had other insignias on it. It's the best way I could say it. Okay, I didn't know what any of this stuff was. Okay, I didn't know petroglyphs from Adam. You know, I didn't know any of this stuff. You know, I'm a newbie. You know, but there it was, and it looked just like this. Had a mountain, had 3 crosses on it. There's the sun here. It had rays coming down, hitting the crosses, coming down like this. Had a hole here, okay, that came down and hit this hole, okay. Had a whole bunch of, looked like arrows, okay, like, and I don't know what those meant, which actually are sun rays, okay. Had this figure up at the top, okay, of some kind of man, okay, with his arms stretched out, okay. Had lightning bolts here, okay. That's basically it, okay. Had some other figures in between here. Anyways, and so I looked at that, everything I'd drawn out, and I thought, Lord God, what is this? I found something. This was really cool. This was really neat. Anyways, I was really super tickled. I was really happy. Anyways, and so I left. By the time I got back down to my camp, it was already dark. And I struggled my way down with the flashlight. Anyways, but I was elated. I was overjoyed. So much so that I drank a lot of beer that night. Well, I drank too much. But because I wanted to get up early in the morning and go back, but I wanted to keep on exploring, I got up a little too late. But I went back. This is an important part of the story, okay? Of course, I cannot collaborate. I cannot prove this all really happened. Okay, it did. Okay, but there's a good part to it. Okay. Anyways, so I got up late that day, and I got all, you know, did my constitution, had my coffee and everything else, got my pack all replenished, everything, so I went back. Okay, but now I went further into this canyon, and I got into the middle canyon. And so I decided I would explore the middle canyon. You have to understand, I'm way far away now from my car. Okay, miles into this mountain, and my car is way down here. Okay, and you know, but I got this drive in me. I gotta find out. Okay. Anyways, so so I get into the middle canyon, and I start exploring the middle canyon. And what I'm looking for is these Spanish graves, because there's crosses that are on this map. Mm-hmm. And I figured they're Spanish graves. Okay? And it's the only thing logical that came to my head. So I'm looking for graves with crosses on them, or something similar. Anyways, and so I get into the middle canyon, And at first, I can't see anything in the bottom of the canyon because it's so damn steep and everything else. And but I decide I'm going to go down into the canyon, so it's very treacherous getting down. And so I get down in the bottom of the canyon, I start exploring that, and there's stuff down there, but I can't explain it, okay? But I'm not finding anything that resembles Spanish or anything else. So I decide to go back up the canyon on the ridge, and it's even more treacherous getting up. But I get up there, and anyways, and so I start walking along this ridge, and I get on up to a point where it crosses this other ridge, and I got one. I had 2 Alice packs from my days in the service, and so I got this Alice pack on, okay, and it's got all my food in it, and I got my canteen and everything else that's in it. And so I get on up to this point, and I turn around to look at the view, or turn around to look at something, I can't remember. All of a sudden, this blast of air knocks me off of this ledge, and I fall at a pretty good incline, about 150 feet down this cliff. And everything comes off. My pack comes off and everything else, and I'm bloodied and bruised and scarred, but it was like a blast of air, and I'm dazed, and but I'm alive, okay, I'm bloody on my arms, okay, and on my legs, anyways. And so I get down to where my pack is, and I start picking up my stuff, and I start putting it in my pack, and anyways, there's a can of peaches, and the can of peaches is no good, because it's got this bullet hole in it. Bullet hole? That's what I had bullet hole in my peaches, okay? It was dripping all over my hands. And immediately, I knew somebody had shot me, okay? And I just dropped everything.
You didn't have a gun on you?
Huh?
You didn't have a gun on you?
No, I didn't have a gun on me. Anyways, I dropped everything, and about that time, more bullets were coming whizzing past me. And so I turned around and ran. I ran like hell. Anyways, and so I was running down this canyon, and bullets were whizzing past me left and right, and hitting the rocks right next to me and everything else. And now I'm really scared. Somebody's trying to kill me for God knows why. Okay. Anyways, well, what I figured out was when I had turned around, and just as I turned around and they hit my pack, okay? They were aiming at me, but when I turned around, they hit my pack, and that's what knocked me over the cliff. And then when I was down there, okay, I'd fallen out of sight away from them, and then as I was gathering up my stuff, they had run around to another vantage point and they started shooting at me again. And anyways, and so I vacated. I started running for my life. And I ran down the canyon a good ways. And now I'm really in a bad state of mind. And I don't have my pack on me. I don't have anything on me. Okay? And I don't have water. My canteen is there. I don't have my canteen. Okay? And all my food is in my pack. Everything's in my pack. My flashlight's in my pack. Everything. And come to find out, well, I had like an extra pack of cigarettes in my pack. My cigarettes fallen out when I fell, you know. I don't have anything on me, okay? I got nothing, you know, and I'm bruised and bloodied, okay? But I'm running for my life. And I get down to a certain point of where I think it's safe. I'm out of their range, okay? And I get on up, I start hiking up the ridge, and I get on up so I can look back and see where these guys are. I didn't know there were two guys immediately. I found out there was two, and they both had rifles, scopes, and I could see their scopes, their reflection in the sun, because the sun's setting at this time, and I could see their reflections. But I was too far away from them. Anyways, and so the sun's setting, just like what happened today, and I'm looking up the canyon to where they were shooting at me at, okay? And all of a sudden, there was two giant crosses, well, actually there was three giant crosses, Spanish crosses carved in the hillside. And that's what I was looking for all the time. Anyways, and so now I knew that I was in the middle of some kind of fantastic treasure. Okay?
So I wanna, what do you think they were shooting at you for?
Well, they were guarding something.
That's what I think. You was close to something they had found.
Yeah.
You was close. I mean, I think they'd found something and you was getting close to it.
Right. Or they were, or they were hired to
Protect it?
protect it or whatever.
Wherever they shot you at, you was close.
I was close.
Yep.
You never went back there?
Yes, I did go back, okay, but I never picked up my pack or anything. I just left everything lay as it was. But it's real close up to the wolf's face. Okay, to the right of the wolf's face is a triangle with a thunderbird in it. Okay, I know you couldn't see that today. Okay, it's in the pictures. Okay. When you blow up this picture, which Terry has, I gave him a blown up of it, okay, you can faintly see it, okay, it's not, you know, because it's the same picture that I took in 1986, I just blew it up, okay, but it's there. Anyways, but also there's an X up there. And that's, I think it's the same X that I found on Frank Fisher's map. Okay. Anyways. So I'm in a sad way now because I'm making my way down the canyon. The sun is setting and it's getting dark and it's getting cold. And I don't have a jacket or anything now. And so I'm on the greatest verge in my life of having a full-blown nervous breakdown. Okay? But I had to get down. If I'm going to survive, I got to get down this mountain. Okay? So the sun sets, and it starts getting dark, and out of the blue, this thing comes right at me. You cannot imagine anything like this until it happens to you, okay? and it scared the living shit out of me. And it was this orb, and it come flying at me and then it stopped right in front of me. And it was, you could see through it and you couldn't see through it. Okay? It was white or iridescent or something like that. Okay? And it was big. Okay? It was an orb. It was big. It was, anyways, and it stopped right in front of me. Okay? And then it started going down the trail. And I watched it. And then it came back. And then it go down the trail. And then it came back. And this is all happening within just a couple of feet of me. And I'm watching this thing and I'm thinking to myself, I've lost my mind. Okay? I mean, really, I'm having a full-blown nervous breakdown here, okay? I'm totally scared, okay? I'm bruised, I'm bloodied, okay? I'm crying, you know? And there's just, whatever it is, okay? And anyways, and so it does that a couple times, and finally it stops. And I get up and I start following it. And we go on down. I'm following it. This goes over hours, okay? And I stop. I have a nervous breakdown. I start crying again, you know. And then I gather my thoughts and everything else. And every time I stop, it stops. Okay, and then when I gather my faculties, you know, and I get up, then we're ready to go again. Okay. And anyways, this goes on all night, and it takes me right down to my car.
You know, you're talking about when you sat in the chair and there's the circular orb.
Yep. I know.
Similar?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. That's Terry's mentioned that, you know, I've thought about it and everything else. Anyways, so I don't know. I ain't got no idea. But then, anyways, so it takes me to my car, and then, so I had to spend a whole day gathering my thoughts and everything. I got everything. But I had to hide a key at my car, so because I lost my keys on the mountain and everything else. But I had to hide a key, and I already had my campsite set up. But I had my ice chest in the trunk and everything else, my medical supplies, and the whole 9 yards. Anyways, so I just spent the whole day bandaging myself and getting my ass together, you know, and then I went home the following day after that. Okay, well, so that all happened. Okay, so that was in 77, I think.
So during the orb, when it was leading down the mountain, was it dark at a certain point, or was it illuminating your way?
Oh no, it was illuminating my whole way. I was following it very closely.
And it would light up the path so you could see.
No, I can't remember that part. I was just following it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Anyways. But, so anyways, it saved my life. Anyways, and when I got down to the car, and I found my hide key, and I know it was there when I found my hide key, and then I turned around to, of all things, to say thank you, and it was gone. Anyways, so that was an emotional experience I'll never forget. And so that was in 77. But in 85, I got really busy with the mountain. I started coming back. I was up in the middle canyon here, and I found a stone, stacked stones that, like the prospectors would stack to mark their mining claims with. And inside this stacked stone, I found a glass jar, and inside this glass jar was a map, and it was drawn by Frank Fish, dated 1959. Frank Fish was a famous treasure hunter that had found treasure right over here at Robbers Roost and other areas, everywhere. He found treasure all over the place. He found treasure down in Mexico and Puerto Rico and Costa Rica. And, anyways.
What would he do with the treasure? He was going to become rich, or he just liked to seek out the treasure?
Well, he had a museum. He had a museum full of some of his treasures. He was shot to death by an unknown assailant behind his museum in Amador City in 1965. But at that time, in the 60s, he was a famous treasure hunter. So I found his map on the mountain. This is off to the side of the Middle Canyon. Because it was Frank Fish, and because he's associated with Robbers Roost. And I turned around from the mountain, looked at Robbers Roost, and I'm trying to gather this all in my mind with all of my past experiences and everything else. And I'm saying to myself, there's something big here, something really big. Anyways, but when I came back to the mountain, I had guns on me. Anyways.
You could tell that map you found was a map of the mountain?
It was a map. Well, it wasn't a map of the mountain, it was a detailed map further on up. Anyways. Had the all-seeing eye on it and everything else. Well, anyways, it's in my book. I refer to the book. I leave nothing left in the book. Everything I'm telling you is in the book. Whether you like it or not, it's in the book. Anyways, there was one of these guys that I knew, and he was an Apache Indian. And I had conveyed to him this stuff about the mountain, Frank Fish, and everything else. Well, he had a grandfather. Okay, and more than a grandfather, he was a grandfather, Indian grandfather type. And he lived out on the Chimavavi Reservation in Riverside. Why he lived there, I couldn't figure out why, but that's where he lived. And so we should go talk to grandfather. Okay, because he knows something about Frank Fish, and now I'm interested in Frank Fish. And so we go to see him, but have a lot of material on me, including pictures and everything else. Well, at first, he doesn't want to talk to this white kid. Anyways, and after a lot of cajoling by his grandson, and I'm talking to him and everything else, and I have my notebook and I'm showing him pictures, and he's not saying anything. I'm showing him pictures. I'm going through the pages. Pretty soon he opens up and he tells me, he says, if I really want to know, he says, I'm going to write down these instructions for you, and you have to follow them to the letter. Okay? So he tells me exactly what kind of camera to buy, the lens and everything else, and where to go, and which is at Robbers Roost, where Frank Fish found treasure at. But I'm taking a picture of Black Mountain on this certain day, which is September 21st, 1986. And that's the picture I take. And he tells me it will open up an entire world for you. And That's the picture I take. It's got the giant serpent on it. It's got the giant crosses on it. It's got the wolf's head on it. It's got everything on it. Anyways, and it does open the entire world up for me.
And that was his only instructions was to do that. Go take that photo.
Yep.
Where was it that you took the photo from?
Robber's Roost.
Where's that?
It's right there. When we're standing on the hill, I said, everybody turn around and look. There's those rocks sticking up out of the desert. That's Robber's Roost. That's about 5 miles away. Anyways,
Close to the 14?
it's on the other side of Highway 14. It's just on the other side of the California Aqueduct. Anyways, so that's where I take the picture from. And I'm just saying that this stuff on the mountain has been here for thousands upon thousands of years. Let's say it's been here for 10,000 years. I believe it's longer than that, but let's say 10,000 years. How many big earthquakes have there been in this country for 10,000 years that would break apart rocks and everything else?
A lot of this stuff, what you're talking about, is not of men. Okay? If it's of a different source that's beyond us,
Right,
it doesn't matter about time
right.
or weather.
That's
or
right.
earthquakes or whatever. It wasn't made by people. We're looking for something that was carved. There's a machine mark. There's something you go, oh, well, now I know how that was done. It's beyond us to know how it was done or why it's here,
That's right,
right?
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're telling the stories, you talk about the mountain and you talk about it almost in a relational situation. Like the mountain guides you. And obviously, there's something about it that's called to you to be
Yeah.
an obsession of sorts. And
Well, yeah.
I just didn't know, I surmise that you haven't been there as much for the last decade, and I wonder if that means that you're not as excited about it, or you don't think there's more to find, or...
There is more to find. Okay, but I'm getting older. Okay, economics. One of the people that was very energetic and would always meet me out here and was always going with me and everything else, Craig Collette. Okay, I could call him anytime. He was ready to go. Bummer. You can't do that anymore. There ain't too many people like him. Anyways.
Is this the guy that sat in the chair and was sick there?
Huh?
Is this the guy that sat in the chair and got sick?
Yeah. Anyways, so just kind of waning down, but I still have lots of interest in it and everything else, spiritually, which I believe, personally, is when I show up here. The mountain knows I'm here, Sounds crazy, I know. There's a bigger thing here, like Danny was talking about, okay? It's a special place. It's a very special place.
Probably a vortex.
Yeah, and there's vortexes here without that, yeah.
Ley lines and all that stuff.
Yep, there's ley lines here.
Churches are always built.
Yeah. And the legendary latitude. The legendary latitude runs right across the serpent here. And you can read that about in my book, okay? Okay. Anyways, and that stretches all the way around the world, okay? Connected to many, many ancient sites.
Now, with your book on Amazon, how are you marketing it? Is it just word of mouth? When people hear about it, they can buy it?
Yep, yeah, that's it.
Do you feel protective over it? So if your book gets out, are you letting people know where it is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Do you tell them not to sit in the chairs in the book?
No. I probably should have told them that. There's some people I would want to have them sit in a chair.
Would you sit in the chair if you saw the chair?
Oh, I'm so tempted. I still think like, oh no, I wouldn't because I understand and like, would I try heroin? Like I heard it's really good, but I know it's gonna ruin my life. And I won't do it.
You just don't sit in that thing.
No,
That one's
okay.
a doozy.
I know the first one sounds pretty cool, legit. I'll try it. What's the plan for tomorrow? Be an early riser? Or?
Well, we're going to go on over, and that's the main reason Terry's here. We're going to go try to find this, well, we're going to find it. I'm going to definitely take you to it. But we're going to try to get into this cave. This is a special cave. Anyways. So I'm not going to talk about it unless we get into it. Okay? But if we get into it,
Don't sit down.
it's going to be good.